demographics at the same time. So whatever we've had up to this point in terms of debt build, it's about to get much larger. That's where entitlements come in because Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, these are much larger line items than military spending. And if you're serious about achieving a balanced budget, that's where the hard work will be. It's much more challenging than just targeting the military. And it will necessitate more sacrifice by voters. Because the baby boomers, even though they're advanced in age, they constitute the second largest voting bloc after the millennials, and they will outnumber Gen X for at least another 12 years. So the most significant beneficiary of a challenging debt environment is the group that can hinder any meaningful changes to it if they decide so. And I'm reasonably certain they do. But I don't believe I'm as despondent about it as you are. Assuming the United States can maintain its overall growth rate, which considering demographic and geopolitical factors, I believe 2 to 2.5 to 3% growth for the next decade is realistic. You can engage in deficit spending to the extent of about $800 to $900 billion a year without increasing the relative debt load. Now, I don't feel great about stating this, but the numbers substantiate it. Second, and this is probably far more significant, our boomers had children. There is hope at the end of the debt tunnel. There is another surge of capital approaching in 10 years. Most of the world doesn't have that, so everyone else is grappling with our aging process and crisis, and the numbers turning against them at a higher proportion compared to their population. Our boomer demographic is about a quarter smaller than everyone else's because no one else has millennials. So for them, this isn't a 10-year period. This is their ongoing norm, and it will worsen every year until their systems collapse. And in that sort of environment, especially when you factor in events like the Ukraine war and a China breakdown and general deglobalization, the volume of capital globally seeking a safe haven will be monumental, and there are very few options, with the United States being larger than all of them combined. So we know capital costs will increase, capital availability will diminish, and our debt level will rise. However, simultaneously, amid all this, there will be a steady stream turning into a steady tsunami of capital coming in from the wider world that will assist in financing it all and further drive economic growth. It won't follow a linear path. I anticipate the US dollar hitting multi-decade lows at the moment. And it's entirely possible that this shift has already occurred in Europe, and it's evident, among other ways, through the exchange rate. Well, let's divide that into 2 points. The first one isn't living longer but being more productive for a longer time. Presently, there's a challenge. People discuss extending the retirement age because it would generate more income and postpone the payments. I understand it sounds appealing until you realize that between illness and mortality, 65 is currently our limit. So if we raise the retirement age to 70, we're actually encountering diminishing returns. We get people who are highly paid because they've been in their jobs for a long time, but their productivity starts to decline after 65. So something that reverses that productivity decline would be what we seek. Things that allow you to be more productive and healthier for a longer time. That would be what we're seeking. That is not where the funding has gone, because that's not what baby boomers have been interested in. They don't want to work longer, they want to live longer. So we've invested all our funding in medical research to extend life, but not necessarily to make it more enjoyable. And that is undoubtedly the wrong economic approach. To my knowledge, we don't have imminent breakthroughs in that first category that would actually address some of these fiscal challenges. All the breakthroughs are focused on the second issue, the aging problem, and that actually exacerbates the fiscal situation by leaving people reliant on healthcare with high costs without income and still paying taxes for a longer period. I'm not particularly concerned about agriculture from the American standpoint. I don't foresee significant shifts in any of the products we produce for domestic consumption. Most of our supply chains, in terms of equipment, labor, and inputs, whether it's fertilizer, pesticide, etc., are mostly within North America. So we can endure significant global disruptions in any number of ways, and the North American food cycle will remain relatively stable. The rest of the world, that is undoubtedly not the case. We're already experiencing disruptions to agricultural inputs. Several of the world's fertilizers, the largest exporter being Russia or Belarus. Thus, in this calendar year, we've already witnessed significant alterations in what is planted and how much fertilizer is used. By September, when we reach our first good harvest forecast, we'll have an idea of just how reduced global yields will be compared to what we consider normal. We won't have to wait much longer to ascertain this. This marks the commencement of a significant calorie deficit on a global scale. Not in North America, probably not in the Western Hemisphere at large, because that area is mostly self-sufficient and immune to what's happening in the Eastern Hemisphere. However, we're anticipating input shortages, energy shortages, and capital shortages. Once it becomes evident how China will emerge from this situation, we'll probably also experience equipment shortages. So I can envision substantially reduced agricultural output in China, Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and the former Soviet Union. Based on how severe it becomes, even in Australia, we're looking at 3 and 5 calories that the world produces facing chronic restrictions in how they can sustain that output due to some kind of deficiency in something. And almost none of this applies to North America.